because that's what I was doing all day Thursday, and it took a really long time to get everything verified with her and her husband since it hadn't been done before. By the time it was time to leave, so like 5:50, I knew I wasn't going to be able to make her lease because it was the first. Everyone was paying rent. It was crazy. Our system's down. It was bad. So I call her right before I leave, and I'm like, hey, I don't have time to make your lease. I'll make it first thing Friday morning. And I will fax it over to your husband. Again, he's going to need to get it signed and notarized and faxed back to me before he can move in, or before you can move in. Is that going to be okay? And she said yes. So I wrote that in my notes in the file. And so Friday morning, first thing what I do in the morning when I get in there at 9 is I make the lease, fax it over to her husband. I call her, say, hey, it was faxed over, sign and notarize and fax it back. No problem again. An hour later, she calls back asking to speak to the assistant manager and flips out and says that I'm an incompetent person. She thought that it was going to be faxed over Thursday night and for her husband to sign first thing Friday morning. And so I was like, I don't know where she got that from. I never said that. You can look at my file notes. I never said that. Not even close to that. At no point was it going to be made on Thursday. The friggin' lease hadn't even been made yet. Well, how can I fax a document that wasn't made until Friday morning? But whatever. So my assistant manager starts yelling at me at like the top of her lungs and saying that basically everything that lady said, that I'm incompetent, I should have stayed late to get the lease done and all of that. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should have stayed late. And, if she had expressed at the night, Thursday night when I called that it was an issue, I probably would have made more of an effort to stay, but she was fine with Friday morning. Number 2, I have children who need to be picked up from daycare at a set time. I can't really stay late, which I believe that night I ended up staying until 6:15 anyway. I'm off at 6. But basically, with certain daycares, if you don't pick them up at a certain time, you get charged extra for that. So, I can't afford that. I have 2 kids. It gets expensive. But, so, she basically said, the words that came out of her mouth were that residents come before my children, which will never on earth happen ever. My children are everything to me. Like I grew them in my body. Well, Charlotte, not Bradley, but he's still mine. Anyway, I was like, if you expect residents to come before my children, you have another thing coming. My children are everything to me. Residents are, just residents. I'll take care of them, but they're they're not even in the same category as my children. And I was like, and I don't appreciate, what did I say? I was like, I'm a little offended by you now. And she was like, what did I do to offend you? And I was like, number 1, you're yelling at me for something that is beyond my control. I was like, if she had had a problem with it Thursday night, I probably would have stayed later to make her leave. But she didn't. And number 2, you're talking to me like I'm 5, and I'm not. I'm an adult just like you are. Talk to me calmly and with respect, and, that's what you'll get in return. But you don't need to be yelling at me over something so trivial as this. My main boss, my manager, came in and I was like, hey, I need to talk to you. And so I go in the office. My manager starts backing up my assistant manager. And I was like, I've worked in property management for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I have never been yelled at, which is true. I've never been yelled at, never close to being yelled at. I think it's a really unprofessional thing to do, especially with someone that is above you. Like she is technically my superior, and it's no. Mm-mm. And so I was like, I don't appreciate it. And I was like, honestly, I am a little bit sad and disappointed right now because I feel like I left a good company, the company that I worked for before. I feel like I left a good company for a company that I don't think is up to par. And she's like, our company is really good, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, honestly, after, number 1, what your employee said to me and the fact that you are defending that employee, that tells me that this is not a good company because I can't help that, And so Um, then she was like, "What do you expect from me, Ashley?" And I was like, "Number one, I want some sort of a complaint to be filed against the assistant manager because that behavior is not okay and it's not something that I'm going to tolerate." And so she was like, "Okay, I'll get the big regional in here," who coincidentally was visiting the office that day. So the regional comes in, and he's like, um, because of the fact that I have had those little absences in the past, he was like, "I'm concerned, the fact that you're not here sometimes." And I was like, "I am too. Unfortunately, I just had this, my babysitter completely crap on me, and I've had a really tough time trying to find somebody else. I'm trying to be diligent and, find someone, but it's not really going that well." And so he was like, he said something that was like, I don't remember, but he was like, "Is childcare going to be an issue," or something like that? And I was like, "Childcare is not going to be an issue." I was like, "I left my children," and I started crying at this part. But I was like, "I left my children in what I'm pretty sure is a crack house because I knew if I were to call out, you guys would fire me." Like, that's what I did. I put my children in danger for this stupid job that doesn't even appreciate me. And so he was like, "Well, children do come before your residence, so you should probably go and get your children." And I'm like, "What?" No offense, but I was like, "What the fuck have I didn't say what the fuck, but in my head, I'm like, that's what I've been trying to tell everyone." Like, and then you have the assistant manager over here telling me that I need to put residents before my children. Like, so basically, I picked up my children, and then me and Matthew sat down that night, had a talk, and decided that that company is just not a company that I need to be working for. We need one that, number one, is going to appreciate me as an employee, and number two, understand that I am a mother first, and an employee second. And I know that probably sounds a little somewhat weird, I guess. Just because I understand where my employer's coming from. It's work. I need to be there for work. I get why they're upset. But just the way that they went about it was completely wrong. And I really don't like the fact that they defended my assistant manager for her actions. Just because I don't see how yelling at an employee at the top of your lungs is considered constructive. And I don't understand how someone can defend that. So yeah, basically I'll never work for that company again, and that's the end of it. I'm just going to take a little time to be a stay-at-home mom, take care of my children. I'm going to probably become a temp leasing agent, one where I can pick my own schedule. That way I can work on Matthew's days off, and it can be just a little bit easier. But I was just thinking about that today because I'm a little depressed about it because I feel... Number one, I feel really sad that I really did leave a good company, which was my first company that I worked for before switching to this shithole. And that was Malawi Development Company, which is an amazing company based out of Seattle. I love them. I should have never left their company. It's stupid. Thought the grass was greener on the other side, and it's not. It's brown and dead.